I just wanted to thank him for this presentation. I think it's enlightening to kind of know some of the facts. We always come in grace for whatever we do, no matter whether it's in Her Majesty's courts for her subjects, which is eloquently explained over here. A lot of you know this particular flag here. What do you call that? Okay, the proper way for the flag is this way. As long as the sun shines and the rivers flow and the green grass grows, the Indians are always my allies as long as they continue to occupy the land. One of my elders is here, can explain it just really briefly so that when you're dealing with issues related to Her Majesty's allies, you are all regarded as her subjects. We are regarded as the allies. And in the Royal Proclamation of 1763, Her Majesty stated that if any of my subjects create any harm to you, my allies, it would just be as if you committed treason against me, and I will send out the military to seek you out upon pain of death. So as a result of that, we don't say that, but that's what we advise the court process when we go into the court. All too often, it's been a learning curve for the justice of the domestic courts of Canada, which are in the filing cabinet. They can only deal with domestic problems related to Canada and all Her Majesty's subjects, the birth certificates, which are in the filing cabinets over here. And the 60-40 agreement, in a nutshell, we're not going to take too much time up with this, but it's important to really know this and what you think is the landers of British Columbia. For British Columbia, when they formed the corporation in 1901, here they tried to usurp the authority of the sovereigns given by Queen Anne's Order in Council, identifying that the Indians will forever own the land, and reaffirmed again in the Royal Proclamation again, and then also in 1835. And Naquala, the chief that was given to Naquala up here, was given the Peace Medallion of Treaty of Peace, because we're in grace together, working together in grace, not as adversaries. So Her Majesty bestowed upon my relative here and the hereditary chief for the Okanagan people medallions from 1763, which he still has in his possession, and also this particular flag here, identifying about what this process actually means in relation to a covenant. And therefore we don't need a lot of the passports that are required here in relation to passing from one port to another within a corporation. So if I may just take just a few minutes, my relative Sumstula is going to address this, because it gets addressed in different areas where Indians are always deemed to be Indians when they're really not. That's a European term. There is no Indians whatsoever. There's only Sukanagans and there's Wipstachen. That is a European term given when some of the status Indians became status Indians and became subjects of Her Majesty and entered onto the Canadian pirate ship called the Admiralty Court, and by mistake got themselves and became status Indians, and therefore they became a body politic, and therefore forever lost their ability to even exercise any hunting or fishing on the land because they forgot who they were. But the Creator gave all of us equally, the black, the white, the yellow, and the red, this land and Mother Earth to reside on equally together. So for that purpose, I believe that's what we should do with one another, is to respect one another in that way. But every so often, we come forward to remind the corporate bodies for the provinces or the states, excuse me, you overstepped your boundaries. I conditionally accept your presumed jurisdiction upon proof of claim that you do have it, and I hope that you have a covenant that supersedes your queens. And then they're probably in jail for 14 years or forever. So, Klimtula. This information about the law of the flag is really good to know, and that way you call us as your allies because we are relatives. It's just somewhere along the line people forgot that and took a look at body politic to supersede the fact that we are all one in this universe, in the eyes of the Almighty Creator, we call small Aggie.
Yeah. Can you guys come this way a little bit?
Sure.
The reason this is important, just if I can preface this a little bit, when these guys are part of the corporation, they get their status card, they move in through citizenship and immigration. They have to immigrate into the they have to immigrate to the ship. That's why they sit on a ship. I mean, citizenship or something. So this is important because down here the rules are different because there's a commonwealth, or what do you guys call it? There's a country or a nation underneath the fiction.
A bunch of loud people.
Over here, there is nothing under this except for these guys. This is why this is very important to why a lot of things don't work here or work differently here. This is very important for most of you to, you know, so I hope that it's helpful.
Speak up.
Aka pix kol koilstem. Aka is naksel kolai kapapna la is so heplas is kalkeluktet. Ala kulis kuleut kne aip. Ut ku kwetstem it's roch kein. Ja is de staltet. Kom neemt het goed als met een been. Uslap na ku ala kutske wil. I just want to let know my brothers and sisters that are in here that I spoke in the language because we are neither history nor we are past. What the very things that we're talking about here today was oral, what we are speaking, because all of these things from the tradition that what we were brought into this land, we were caretakers, and what we speak was a spoken word from that day forth, even though it's called recognized as 1763. We are still here today, and the only difference between the government's jurisdiction and the native people, they are caretakers of this land, and it's based on a covenant. That's why it makes it sacred, because only banners are given from above, and they are rested upon the shoulders of the people, of the chosen people that are here today and still exist and still speak the language. In all of North America, there are only two little reserves, which they call reserves, do not have a treaty, and that is the Okanagan and Shuswap. But they are the key issue to all the other treaties that were there. Because what was given to us was always to be there. Ours was signed, sealed, and delivered. And this flag, right here, spring, summer, winter, and fall. And the blue strips that are there are the rivers and the pureness of her covenant, and the sun. And it's based on that. When the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and the water flows, and the wind blows, and the grass is green, and my children still occupy this land, they are still my children. We are Her Majesty's allies. We are Her Majesty's children. Through assimilation and all of these things that have been there, the governments that was there, a lot of the papers were signed. They forgot that the people that lived here, they were illiterate when they came. Their, what they speak was written, and our language was never written. That's the difference between the written and the unwritten, and it's based on this flag. And this flag has been turned over, has been folded, has been put in a dormant place. It silenced the people. But even though they were signed by the late Pierre Elliott Trudeau and Her Majesty, we are still illiterate. We didn't know how to read or write, so that does not affect us. We are still her children. And all our resources are still there. I hope that what I've said here would put to your hearts instead of up here. Why, Lim.
I just wanted to add just a few points in relation to the power and behind the law of the flag. We have our tribal seal, which supersedes this one because we've always been here. This one just came as a part of the bargain of 1763, reaffirmed again by Queen Victoria, of which my relative Naquala has the medallions all the way back to King George, the Pope, and also Queen Victoria in 1835. So when we deal with the courts in any way, shape, or form for the domestic people of Canada, which is in that part of the matrix zone on the right-hand side of the board that's not there now, because actually it's really not there, but to us, and we walk in with this flag, it's a learning experience even for some of the Masonic judges. But for some of them, they know. So it's at their own peril if they breach this covenant, because it's committing treason against Her Majesty if we are harmed. And therefore, there have been the judges that have bowed before us because of the fact that the Queen already gave them the authority to assist us, and that means the people in the bar are supposed to assist us. That means the police are supposed to be beside us, not arresting our people. And therefore, when they see this flying, they are then to be reminded that the people here have been here forever, and ever, and ever, and that the medallions, we still have them. The crown staff, we still have them. And in fact, one of the judges in Washington State about a month or two ago came down from where the judge was sitting down to where the people were, went over to one of our relatives that we got out of the domestic court jails, and he apologized. He said, "I'm really sorry. We haven't seen your people for a long time, for over 250 years, and I've really never heard them speak the spoken word of your people, and we just assumed then that they were persons. We just assumed that you are here captured within our system, and therefore I apologize for that." And he went over and shook her hand and said, "I'm very sorry." And the same thing with the courts around here. The same thing in Kelowna here. One of my relatives was dealing with a tax evasion problem. Well, I'm not going to get into his name, but he chose to be revert back to a person. And therefore, the charges will come back again because he decided not to be part of our people again, or my brother again, and cut off the connection with us. And I'm fine with that. But all I wanted to do was try to help him so that he didn't get caught up in the matrix of the box for taxations and the birth certificate. So the power behind the flag is no different from the United States. Our tribal seals will trump the United States flag as well, and this one will as well. Queen Anne's Order in Council. So it's just part of this learning process. And to give you thank you, Winston, for giving us this opportunity, because we have helped people, whether they be of the various races of people, and we do it in a humble way, and we try our best to try to help, but we do our best to help our family members as well. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
Max, just a quick question. With the flag being reversed like that, it's quite apparent. Now, is that also the same with all the other flags across the corporate of Canada?
This one's only in relation to this one because of the suspension of the dishonor towards us. So we had to raise it back to the way it was when King George gave that to our people, and that was given also in what they call the states of Washington, and therefore all the under what they call captured Indian territories, for the most part, those don't even exist even right now, because of the fact that the United States Corporation was in bankruptcy during most of that Indian Wars period. And that's one of the reasons why when we went in with this flag, that Washington State Court went totally down. And even Washington, D.C. has no authority over us. Not now or ever. Not the Queen, not the UN. So the UN don't come. And when they try to get a hold of me, and I get a hold of the Department of Justice, they give a letter back saying, sorry, Mr. Max One, there is no geographical area known as Canada. It's only on the map. But, thank you very much. And I accept that and I return it back to him. So what we have here is just part of the covenant that was given to us. But our people tend to live in poverty because they kind of lost their path. And as they awaken spiritually, I believe that everything that our friend is offering here and all our connections that we have has helped us out as well. And I believe it's a spiritual journey as well as one of knowledge is good to have, but I believe it's beyond just the thought of the mind, and it comes from the heart, because when it comes from the heart, then there's no fear, because I know who I am. And therefore we have this covenant with your queen. And she says that she will uphold the faith and that she will protect us, as long as we're not status Indians, as long as we're not Indian bands, as long as we're not residents, as long as we're not citizens of Canada, because Canada does not exist. It's just a corporation registered in Washington, D.C. And so we know that. So thank you very much.
Maybe everybody wants to just get 40% of the money out of your wallet and give it to Max One on the way out.
There's no money, remember?
Does anybody else have any questions? There's one.
Just on this status type thing, is that, well, it looks like we all got lost also. Like these guys, they say they lost their journey, but we're born into this weird stuff anyways. So my question is basically, how are you guys getting back? I know it's having a hard time, but you said once you're a status Indian, you're no longer part of the land. But can you actually come back to part of the land and claim it back? And just as we're trying to do now, exactly what we're trying to do. I guess we're trying to be natives of the land also, to be one. And so how do you get, let's say, your people to be one, or to wake them up, or...
I can't do that because I'm not my brother's keeper, but for the most part, for those that are awake in their spiritual walk, they will be there. But it's not for me to tell them or to teach them, because it's them that come to us. It could be different people from different walks. Like I've dealt with my relative over here. I didn't know that Burke could speak, right? We call him, but to us and the Okanagan people, he has a tribal name with the tribe taken in and sacred to us. His name is Quiliquin. So just to us, which means we're speaking to a brother in a living force with the breath residing in. So you have a proper captain in the ship, somebody that can reason, somebody that has a sound mind see.
So theoretically, the Queen would like us all to be allies, right?
She wants the money.
Well, the
And
Treasury loves that.
so this is the goal, I guess, right?
And the issue related
Thanks.
to being lost from the land. I really never got lost, not ever since I was a little boy. The name on the birth certificate, Marlon Bradford Watts, was given by the Anglican Church, and no disrespect to the churches in any way, shape, or form. That was part of the process in this life journey that I have, because I have nothing negative to say about the church in any way, shape, or form, although certain people have had certain impacts in relation to issues related to abuse of Indians or Native Indians or what you want to call them in your mind. But for me, I'm Max one of Wupstachan, which means white deer of the Killawell clan. So when we were born then, the church then said, well, I think we should baptize you, get rid of that heathen name called Maxwan, and therefore we're going to give you a good Christian name now, Marlon Bradford Watts, which ended up being a trust. And I have a letter that I found from the tribe in 1836 identifying Indian Affairs sitting at a table with the Anglican Church saying, please put the trust of the Indians, known as the Indians of King Coleth Indian Band, in our hands. So they're asking Indian Affairs for that. So for the most part, if you want to check that out, if you were baptized in any faith of Christianity, there's about 365 of them or so around the world, you're then deemed to be then still bonded through that as well, through that baptismal certificate, not just the birth certificate, and then they'll deem you of not being of sound mindedness as well, because you are then deemed to be property then of the Catholic Church or whomever. But I'm not saying that on a negative light. I'm just saying that from a perspective of the fact that that's the way things unfolded, and as we became more awakened in who we are, and I took me 3 years to speak this language that I'm speaking today, and whenever I translate things, and I tend to do that even now, when I'm speaking this language, it comes out backwards when I'm translating from my language. So I finally realized then that on all the plane of the world that the English language is not regarded as sovereign, and I believe that a lot of you know that. So therefore, not one piece of contract in the Ingle or the Angle is regarded as valid. And that's why the two meetings of in the interpretations of the Bar Act identifies the meeting of two attorneys for the purpose of committing fraud. And it's not hidden, right? We're just saying we're going to do it to you, and we just want to see if you're going to figure it out, right? So really, we don't have anybody else to blame, and it's really not a blame game. It's just say, wake up a little bit.